that the problems are not as readily identifiable as they were earlier. Before, people told you, oh, you can't have the job, you can't do this work. Now, it's a little more covert. You see women in beginning jobs, you see women in middle jobs, but there are very few women in the upper reaches of the power structure where the real decisions are implemented.
How do you think this is impacting on the men in America?
I think there's a lot of resentment, and I think that some of it's justified. I think that whenever a woman gets a job solely based on blue eyes over gray matter, that men have the right to feel that they've been discriminated against. On the other hand, if a woman gets a job and her qualifications and experience and ability are commensurate with any man who competes against her, then it's the man's problem to deal with it.
What about women in management, in news? There are, of course, those of us on the air now, in the local level and on the network level. But what about managing the news directors and the executive producers?
Not nearly enough. More than that, not nearly enough in upper-level management. Never mind in news management. Not all decisions about news are completely made by news management. The line decisions, but some of the major talent-choosing decisions are made by people even above that. At least they have an input. And the length of the newscast is not necessarily determined by news management always. I mean, our news management, I fought long and hard for an hour news, and if it had been up to our news management, we would have gone to an hour news a long time ago, I'm sure. The managerial level is the last bastion to be penetrated by women in broadcasting. We got on in front of the camera, there were those behind the camera, there were those in floor crews, but the upper reaches of management is really where the decisions for programming and news, all those decisions are made. Now, we at NBC have women executives, we have a woman vice president, we have women in charge of on-air news promotion and all of the news promotion. And we have women producers, although we have no major women executive producers. They are primarily male. And that's about the same as all networks. In fact, NBC may be a little more enlightened than the other two. But it is not because there's a bias necessarily against women, but women have only recently been afforded entry-level jobs, and they've only recently had an opportunity to manage station and work their way up. I think we'll see more women in management in the next couple of years. Good news mix would be a good, solid network news, and then a station that is involved in the community, knows the people, knows the makeup and the ideas of that particular community, and reflects it in their on-air news broadcast. So you get a good look at a network and world and national news picture, and then it's intermingled with the local view of the news, and that's what really it should be. As to whether it's taken more seriously, both should be taken seriously. What happens in city government is no less important to you watching a television set than what happens on Capitol Hill or in any world capital. You should be as concerned as to what happens across the street as you are across the continent or across the world. One of the things that you don't see in local news, unfortunately, in this industry, it's axiomatic, to move up is to move out. If you start at a local station and you go to a bigger station and a larger station than that, and maybe you go to the network. And so you don't necessarily get people on the air that are from the community. You and Jack being from the community would have about the best chance of anybody of knowing what reaches and affects the people in your coverage area.